Fujitsu series has always played an important role in the path of drivers working towards a career in the main series. But the recent rule change for endurance events has changed the face of this development category.
By making sure that we've got the drivers in their own cars, you've got to bring a co-driver on who's got the ability to deliver. The only way you can do that ultimately is to keep on training new guys. And I think one of the great benefits of what happened this year at Phillip Island at Bathurst was the co-drivers actually saw some spotlight.
Owen Kelly, now he gets past Scaife.
There were quite a number of people who absolutely stepped up, so it underscored how important their role is and just how vital it is to make sure that you've got young blood that keeps on growing and coming through.
With limited testing available to co-drivers, this year's Fujitsu series has had many experienced drivers competing to gain valuable race miles, a trend that should continue next year.
Some of the guys that are in, or have been, in the Repco Supercars Championship that have come in and driven in the development series, which has actually, in a strange sort of way, bolstered the level of quality there and also made it so that, you know, I think we can get a good feel of how good that bunch of drivers are. So sometimes it's hard to compare. So when a Cameron McConville, for instance, jumps into that field, you get a bit of an indication of how the field is actually going.
The addition of experienced drivers benefits the rest of the field because good results can lead to an enduro seat and eventually an easier transition to the main series.
Whether you win the series and you go to the main game or you're operating in the development series and things are going well for you, you'll still get a good ride. And I think really the way that that's structured is very good for our sport.
This structure has benefited series leader Steve Owen, who played a key role in Team Vodafone's endurance campaign.
It's a way of getting miles, that's first and foremost, but it's also maintaining a competitive edge. We saw that with Steve Owen this year, obviously, with his run in the Fujitsu. It was a very good run for him, but for us it was a real good way of making sure that he was at his competitive best come Phillip Island. You see guys like David Russell, who improved a lot over the last year or so. I mean, you watch carefully because, yeah, you've definitely got to think down the road into next year what you're going to do enduro-wise.
Well, we've done the sums, we've combined the points from races 1 and 2, and that's how we determine the grid for this third and final race. 15 laps ahead here at Sandown. So Steve Owen starts at the front row with Jack Perkins, James Moffat and Tim Blanchard on row 2. Now, a couple of things to come out of race 2. Jeff Emery's received a 30 championship point penalty. Well, he's actually received 2 separate 15-point penalties for the contact with Matthew White and Nick Percat. Drew Russell starting from 9th alongside Scott McLaughlin. Todd Fiore driving the Triple F Racing Falcon. That's an ex-Bathurst winning car from 2007. Nathan Vince has made the trip from Western Australia once again. Daniel Gillison driving a third car from Greg Murphy Racing. He's locked in for the final round at Sydney Olympic Park. But we're locked in now for the start of the final race here at Sandown. Perkins makes the jump. He's trying, though, to edge across and get in front of Steve Owen before turn 1.
Perkins had a great initial jump, but then got too much wheel spin, and Moffat up the inside, so 3 wide again, and we know that's not going to work.
Well, it worked. He got the lead. Russell second, Owen third, and Perkins is peppering the rear bumper of the R&J Batteries car. Jeff Emery through the dirt, Drew Russell through the dirt. Nick Percat made up 3 spots. He just threw it through the scenery.
Fantastic start by Percat. Moffat's in front. We know he's had great speed all weekend, but hasn't been able to use it. Hasn't been out in front, so now's his chance to put his head down.
Scott McLaughlin, the Fujitsu Falcon run by your team, Stone Brothers Racing, tucked right in behind our race 2 winner, but it's Moffat. He's got his nose in front. Russell second.
We go from Moffat's view. Oh, bit of smoke. He's running wide. He's run off the road. No.
He's given away the lead. He's made a critical error, James Moffat. He hasn't won a race this year, and he hasn't won a race since Sydney last year in the final round of the championship. He's got work to do. He's back to 4th.
He's going to be filthy with himself, but he's got to put his head down. We know he's got a fast car. He's got 3 cars to try and pick off before the end to make amends.
So David Russell moves back to the lead. Let's have a look at the replay again. Here's the great start. Perkins and Owen are too busy worrying about one another. Moffat sees the door open, straight down the inside. Here we go.
Lunge.
Bang, nice
Big
move.
Lunge. Great move. He got a good start, beautiful clutch slip, no wheel spin, and beautiful move down the inside. It's a pity he couldn't hold together.
Now, Russell was the one running wide over the top there in the Jayco Falcon with new backing this weekend from Essendon Ford, and Moffat, cold tyre, just snagged a front brake and ran wide.
Yeah, easy to do down there, but I mean, it's what you've got to not do. You've got to restrain yourself on the first lap.
Love this run down this back straight. The back straight's actually longer than the front straight, so the cars are approaching turn 6 with a bit more pace and then launching off the top of this hill.
It's one of the best corners in Australian motorsport. You're on the limiter in top gear, very fast entry, and you've got to be brave over there. The brave guys make up a bit of time.
David Russell's car's an ex-FPR chassis. It's run by Matthew White's team.
Very similar to Moffat's car. You know, they've both got ex-FPR cars, probably sister cars, and both performing very well.
McLaughlin, yeah, made a move there to go by Drew Russell, and they played with the setup of that ESET Falcon for race 2, and it just didn't work. It didn't have the sort of gains that they were looking for. Matthew White there running down the inside made a very last-minute decision to drive this car because he's the team boss. He hasn't raced for 2 years. They didn't have a driver for car 26, so he looked around and ended up going with himself. Jeff Emery, though, is off the road again.
He's been in the action this weekend so far. He's been off the road as much as he has been on the road, unfortunately, for Jeff.
He's fresh from his first run in the Bathurst 1000.
Percat up the inside.
Muscling Rodney Jane out of the way. And Percat, he's fired up, he's ticked off, he's had 2 DNFs. You do not want to stuff around with him.
No, and unfortunately Rodney caught his wrath there. He was lucky not to go into the fence. Great move by Percat. You gotta muscle people out of the way somewhere, and that was reasonably fair, I think.
Daniel Gillison there in the black and white car, the young Kiwi who debuted earlier in the year at Winton, did a very, very solid job. And cutting the grass is all the rage this weekend, but it's not going to help Russell. Marcus Sakanovic, the midway Commodore, is straight down the inside.
Good move. Difficult move down Dandenong Road, but he pulled it off well.
Zukanovic's had all sorts of problems with that car this weekend. They've had a bit of a misfire drama. They didn't get it fixed for race 2, but they reckon there was a faulty RPM crank sensor and they're on top of it for this last race.
Yeah, it's not what you need. You need the motor to be running well around Sandown, and a misfire isn't going to help you cause. Moffat pushing hard. He's got plenty of pace in that Falcon of his, and he's trying to get through, but very difficult to get past Jack Perkins, as Steve Owen saw in the last race.
David Russell is to the lead. He's now moved to second in the championship on the basis that he's been finishing in front of Moffat. He's been finishing in front of Blanchard. Percat's had a bad weekend. The only guy that he's got to beat is right on his tail. This is how hard James Moffat is pushing on the extreme slow-mo. You come off that curb at turn 1, and if you're not at the curb onto the road, that's what happens. There's lots of dirt and debris out there.
Got to be very easy to damage your car there. One of the characteristics at Sandown is it's very rough, not only on the track, but off the track. You've got to keep it on the black stuff.
Taz Douglas here, the race 2 winner. A very solid run. Tim Blanchard right with him. Here's Percat, Matthew White, Zukanovich, young Aaron Russell, Daniel Gillison, Rodney Jane, Ryan Hansford's next, and then Nathan Vince. First time racing at Sandown for Nathan this weekend, as Jane now has a look at the back of the young Kiwi. Oh, Perkins has spun.
Backwards, no.
And now he's got to wait for the field. He'll have to try to do a flick turn here. Gillison's out through the grass. That's been all the rage this weekend.
Difficult to... same thing happened with Amber Anderson earlier on. Very difficult to get the car turned back around in that part of the track if you do happen to have a spin. Now we're going to see what happened here. We've got Moffat pressuring him.
Having a look. Moffat up the inside, locks a brake, up over the curb, and he muscles Perkins. Now, earlier in the weekend, Jack went through there and kept it going straight. Here's a bit more of an angle. Is this optimistic? Is this on?
Maybe slightly, but at the end of the day, he didn't turn Perkins round. Perkins has got back on the track and then spun by himself. So, I mean, a bit marginal from both sides there.
So the Love Commodore ends up pointing in the wrong direction. Moffat's through to third. David Russell, though, continues to lead the way. It's the final race in round 6 of the Fujitsu Series. More from Sandown in just a sec. The Fujitsu fight continues here at Sandown. It's the final race of the weekend. David Russell leads the way, but James Moffat is on the comeback trail. He's down the inside, and he's past the championship leader. And Moffat made a mistake. He led on the first lap, ran off the road, went back to 4th, muscled Jack Perkins, past Steve Owen, and now it's all about David Russell.
He's on a charge, and there's nothing that makes the lap times come down more than spearing off when you're in the lead and having to come back through the field.
Problem here, a limping Drew Russell with a left front puncture on the ESET Falcon. But a couple of laps to go, a little bit of distance to find, but Moffat has been coming on strong in the second half of a lot of these races. but he just made a crucial mistake on that first lap and gave away the lead.
Yeah, he's going to be kicking himself, but he hasn't given up, and this race is not over because he's pulling in David Russell hand over fist here.
We've just done some numbers here, Alex, and if James can get to the lead and get by David Russell, he will not just win the race, he'll win the round, and he will stop Steve Owen from taking the round. If they finish as they are, that's what will happen.
It's a big move. He wasn't right behind Stephen Owen. He was probably a couple of car lengths back, so that was a huge lunge into turn one. Great move.
Oh, Scott McLaughlin here, wide over the grass, the Fujitsu car. Now, we got to the bottom of that story earlier on. He bent a shock in race 2 from hitting a curb. That's why he had damage and he was limping back to pit lane. Here's Nick Percat in the Bundaberg Red Commodore, former Formula 4 champ from last season. Started the year with the J Motorsport team in the older model VZ, and that's Daniel Gillison. And he also has got a puncture and is limping back to pit lane, and we're hearing that that's from some contact out on the road. So it has been a pretty brutal weekend. Jeff Emery closing in here on the back of Tim Blanchard. The extreme slow-mo just gives you a great impression of how hard these cars cop the load.
As I said before, those curbs are brutal, and you can see when that car hit the curb, all the bodywork bottomed out and got crumpled right through. It's amazing that the bumpers and all the bodywork hang together so well.
Plenty of battle scars on the side of Nick Percat's car. This is the Bathurst winning chassis from last year. So we've got the winners of the last 3 Bathurst from 09, 08 and 07 all in this one race.
A lot of very successful cars right through the field. You know, they're all ex-main game cars, so a lot of race winners in that field. But Matt White's doing a good job, considering he doesn't drive full-time anymore. He's in there battling with the full-time guys.
He holds the record for the most podium finishes, in fact, in the Fujitsu series, but Steve Owen is a man who is really chasing that record down. Moffat is chasing down a race win. I'm not sure if he knows or not, but if he gets the win, he gets the win for the round. So that would be a really important one because he hasn't won a round of this championship in quite a long time. In fact, you have to go right back through to Townsville last year. That's a long time between drinks.
Yeah, I'm sure he knows. I'm sure they remind him on the radio. You can see he's got his headlights on and he's really on the charge. On board with Moffat now. It looks nice and relaxed in the car, nice and smooth, not too much wheel work, so the car's working well. And he's got his eyes locked on David Russell, for sure.
I've got to say, James is a driver with a lot of flair. He's the kind of guy that probably is fast. He just needs to be brought back a notch sometimes rather than being slow, and you need to motivate him to go quicker. There's no problem with in terms of the gusto that he drives his car.
Yeah, no, he is an exciting guy to watch. He really needs just to calm it down a little bit. There's no one ever doubts his speed. He's always one of the fastest guys out there, but really needs to take a deep breath sometimes and just hang back and, you know, live to fight another day. I'm sure he's learned after a few of the offs he's had this year.
I tell you what, though, he's not holding back here. He's gaining, and Russell's made a little mistake. So a lock up there from David Russell in the Jayco Falcon. The pressure is starting to come. Can he bring it home? There's 1 lap to go at the end of this one. Moffat's still a chance here.
As soon as Moffat sees those little brake lock-ups that Russell's doing into corners, that'll give him a bit more motivation. He can see that Russell's feeling the pressure. He's got the car speed. Couple of laps to go. He's pushing hard. Final lap.
Love this run down this main straight. The massive grandstand at Sandown that, when it's packed with 9,000 people, really does roar. But Russell, he'll look in the mirror. He sees the Norton 360 Falcon car coming.
Russell should have a big enough gap, but, I mean, as we can see by a few of his little brake lock-ups, big slide there.
That was a big mistake, and it'll compound here. Moffat is right on his hammer.
It's on. We know you can have a good lunge into Dandenong Road and into the last chicane complex, so Moffat hasn't given up, and this race is not over yet for sure. Russell needs to keep his eyes forward. He's in the mirrors too much at the moment.
Now, what does he do? Does Moffat go for the big lunge up the inside at Dandenong Road, or does he focus on the exit and try to get it done in the last complex?
It depends how close Moff is. He's right behind him over the top of the hill. Moffat will be trying to get close to have a lunge into Dandenong Road. Is he going to have a go? He's not close enough.
He needs to get the run. He needs to get the drive out of this corner and race David Russell to the second last corner. There's 2 corners to go in the third and final race. There's a race win on the line. There's a round win maybe for Moffat, but this is his last chance. He's not close enough. He's put the pressure on. Russell's a little bit wide. Here's a chance. Moffat's up the inside. It's a drag race to the line at Sandown. Russell's got his nose in front. Moffat just quite doesn't get there. The margin, 4/10,000ths of a second.
That was about as close as you can get. Moffat was right in the side draft, trying to get a toe over the line, but didn't quite get there.
Taz Douglas, stunning weekend, 4th place for the privateer Commodore driver. Blanchard next, then Scott McLaughlin. Nick Percat has had 2 retirements this weekend. He has finished 7th and started 20th on the grid. Perkins is home in 10th after that contact with James Moffat. So did get a couple more spots. In the end, the margin was 0.04 of a second. I got a bit excited before. David Russell takes the win from James Moffat, who misses out on the win. Here it is again, by the closest margin ever in Fujitsu Series history.
James, what a finish to that final race.
Yeah, it was certainly pretty exciting. I think if we had finished where we were starting from down in front of the grandstand, I might have had him. But look, it's been a good weekend, obviously, for Norton 360. I want to go well everywhere, but if I was going to go well, I want to go well at their home event. But I got to apologise to, he's probably my best mate, Jack Perkins. He's probably not speaking to me now, but we had a bit of contact there in the last race, and you never want to have that, especially when you're mates or close with somebody. So yeah, hopefully he's talking to me soon.
So Moffat stands on the podium. He misses the round win by just 2 points. Steve Owen takes his 3rd round win, his 6th career win in the Fujitsu Series.
Steve, it hasn't been your usual dominant weekend, but importantly, a race win and still leading the championship with just one round, I should say, to go.
Yeah, it's getting fairly competitive out there. We got the pole. We ended up with a round win, so we should be happy. But you're right, it's getting fairly intense up the front there. But bring it on. I love good racing like that.
With 300 points left in the last round in Sydney, only David Russell and Tim Blanchard can mathematically stop Steve Owen from taking his 2nd Fujitsu Series crown. His podium finish this weekend is the 13th of his career, and it ties the record with Matthew White. David Russell and James Moffat sprayed the champagne. So just 1 round left to go now in the 10th anniversary season in the Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series. In a week's time, we'll decide the championship at Sydney Olympic Park. It supports the Sydney Telstra 500. We'll decide champions in both the Fujitsu Series and the V8 Supercar Championship Series. Races 25 and 26, each over 250 kilometres. Thanks to Alex Davison and Brian Ingerson and the whole crew. I'm Aaron Noonan. We'll see you next time.